Damien, you are invited to welcome all our guests. Please go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Um, St. Patrick's Day is a unique festival in the world in that um, it has origins about 1,000 years ago, but its primary purpose is to celebrate life. And Ireland is unique in that we have a diaspora which is probably 10 times our home population. And we have spread all over the world. There's about 44 million in the States who claim Ireland as their primary um, source, and Australia, and we've had lots of people in India over the years, and that. And the purpose of the day really is to enhance relationships with people from all over the world and to bring people together and to celebrate that fact that we live in a little global village, and what we do in one corner of the world impacts those people in further corners of the world. And we have this dreadful situation at the moment in Ukraine, which is just heartbreaking. It's an area I traveled through in the 80s, and it is beautiful, and the Crimea is beautiful. And it is just so sad to think that this can happen. But our object today is to create improved relationships between ourselves and India. And it's relationships like that that prevent such dreadful things happening. Democracies have never started wars of any consequence. It's so let us celebrate the wonders that we share. And it's people that make the difference. And we are fortunate in Ireland to have this wonderful new ambassador, Ambassador Mishra, who is just a breath of fresh air. And his enthusiasm for life and for um, commerce and for government and societal interaction is just wonderful. And we have an equivalent of him here in Ireland. We have Duncan Stewart. Duncan has done 400 and odd TV programs, and they're an inspiration to us all and a constant reminder of the need for change and what matters. That we're in this period of the world now where the primary influence has been the actions of man, whereas previously it was random um, sort of things that man had no control of. And communication, those people here in this room, we've lived in the best times the world has known. The ease of transport, the ease of communication. This would have been unimaginable, say, even 20 years ago, to have a conference like this. So let us get about it. Now, we have some wonderful and interesting speakers. We have Panky Jain, who is inspirational and has a wonderful comprehension of what is needed to make bureaucracies and governments function and work together. We have Lawrence Lee, who has an understanding of how we can find the funding and the businesses whose taxes will allow us have a just society. We have John Carroll, who, lawyers are absolutely essential to the good functioning of the world, but people like John, who've got an altruistic and a philanthropic concept going with it, are even more important. Dr. Chari, who anybody who has heard him speak, we need more people like him. And I think that if we continue working together towards a better society, we will have a great world. And people like Prashant, who is in the background here, again, he should be the co-ambassador for India, because he brings an understanding and an appreciation of how people working together can make things happen. Now, I'm terrible for Ramadan, and I don't want to take up too much time, but we have a minister then, Sean Fleming, who is a good friend of mine for a very long time, and his work in public accounts, and he's he's a chartered accountant by profession, and he has an understanding of everything from domestic housekeeping to national finances and the global insurance market. And that bringing together of high technical skills and common sense and wisdom are unique. So I would like to now have Sean Fleming just make some opening remarks. And we want to extend our sympathies to our Taoiseach Micheál Martin today on contacting COVID. His timing is dreadful.
Hello, I am pleased to send you St. Patrick's Day good wishes and greetings on behalf of the Irish Government for this year's Ireland-India Business Conference. The St. Patrick's Day takes place, of course, in the shadow of an armed conflict in Europe, a conflict which represents a fundamental challenge to the international order, the rule of law, and our democratic values. As a small country dependent on multilateralism and those values, we condemn Russia's actions and stand in full solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Ireland and India, like all democratic countries, large or small, will stand together in support of these values which unite our two peoples. Each year, St. Patrick's Day provides an opportunity to reconnect with and support communities around the world while marking Ireland's unique identity and culture. Connecting with our communities at home and overseas is of particular importance this St. Patrick's Day as we emerge from the pandemic, which has underlined to us all the importance of community and as we stand in solidarity with the people of Ukraine. This year for St. Patrick's Day, the Irish people can also reflect on the centenary of this state and our struggle for independence, while in August, the Indian community will celebrate India's 75th year of independence. It is clear that both India and Ireland have made extraordinary progress over the decades of their independent history. Moving now to today's conference, I would like to thank the Ireland-India Council for providing the opportunity to discuss the theme of investment in the post-COVID and post-Brexit world, which I am sure will generate a rich discussion. I would also like to say a special word of welcome to the new India Ambassador to Ireland, His Excellency Mishra, who I know is joining you today. We met recently and had a wide-ranging discussion on many issues relevant to the conference today, including the enhancement of business links between our two countries. We also had the opportunity to discuss the bonds between our two peoples, which have been greatly strengthened by the Indian community in Ireland. The 45,000 Indian-born people in Ireland are making a valuable contribution to Irish society. I have had the privilege of meeting many members of the Indian community living here through my current role. I would also take this opportunity to thank in particular the many members of the Indian community who provided vital service to our health services during the pandemic. As you're all aware, bilateral relations between Ireland and India are already excellent, and they're deepening further in line with the objectives of the government's Asia-Pacific strategy. Recent political engagement has been both active and positive, despite the pandemic and travel restrictions. Most recently, our Foreign Minister Affairs, Minister Coveney, and your Foreign Minister met in Munich just last month. In-person meetings and travel, key to any bilateral relationships, have not been possible for 2 years due to the COVID pandemic. But I welcome the fact that travel between our two countries is now reopened. I am pleased to say that my colleague and friend Robert Troy, who is our Minister of State with responsibility for trade promotion, will visit India for St. Patrick's Day for an extensive programme which includes high-level political engagements. One of the key elements of Mr. Troy's programme in Mumbai is to officially open Ireland House, where our Consulate General and state economic agencies are co-located. The opening of Ireland House is in line with the approach defined in our Asia-specific strategy to double our impact in the region by 2025. Over the past 2 years, the pandemic has highlighted that international cooperation is the key to tackling global challenges. I was pleased that Ireland was able to respond quickly to India's request for emergency supplies during the second COVID surge almost a year ago now, in April 2021. I hope it went some way towards alleviating the enormous suffering of those most affected. In line with this position, Ireland has committed to the donation of up to 5 million COVID-19 vaccines through the COVAX vaccine initiative and bilateral arrangements with recipient countries, equivalent to a donation being made in the name of each single person living in Ireland. Economic relations between our two countries have grown over recent years. Trade between Ireland and India now stands at over 5 billion per annum, with trade in services reaching almost 4 billion euro last year. The value of goods trade between Ireland and India has grown remarkably in recent years, growing by 53% from 888 million euro in 2020 to 1.36 billion euro in 2021. As one of the largest economies in the world, India represents great opportunities for Irish firms. Enterprise Ireland has identified opportunities for Irish companies in India in the areas of education and edtech, life sciences, ICT and digital technologies, and aviation. Indeed, I know that opportunities in these areas will be the focus of some of your discussions here today. Likewise, there are tremendous opportunities for investment by Indian firms in Ireland. Foreign direct investment has been an important contributor to Ireland's economic development and growth, with India an important region in IDA's Ireland growth strategy. I am pleased to say that there are now 39 companies of Indian origin operating in Ireland, employing almost 5,000 people. Ireland can be the gateway to the European single market for Indian firms. Indeed, our EU membership provides much of the context for your engagement with India at an economic level. We hope that recent discussions will lead to a rapid progress of the EU's negotiation with India for a free trade agreement and for an investment protection agreement. Irish and Indian investors alike will drive growth and employment in both countries, but they must have a legal certainty and a business confidence to do so. An EU-India investment protection agreement could unlock important investments by giving dependable assurances to investors in both countries. As I set out at the start of my remarks, this St. Patrick's Day should be focused on the connection between our communities. I've touched on some of the connection between Ireland and India during these remarks, including the important role played by the Indian community here in Ireland. I would like to conclude by wishing you all a happy St. Patrick's Day, Lá Fhéile Pádraig Sunday, and hope that you will keep the importance of these connections in mind as you continue your discussions here today.
Now, that was very interesting. Sean is a great guy. So we would now like to ask Ambassador Mishra to say a few words. And I think you have like mindset that you will have enjoyed Sean's meeting with them and that. So away you go.
Namaskar. My warm greetings on St. Patrick's Day and Holi to all friends who are connected with this program. Let me begin by expressing my profound gratitude to Damien and Prashant Shuklaji and IIC for kindly hosting this event. I must say that Damien and Prashant are my very first friends in Ireland. Therefore, they are very special to me. And I'm very grateful to both of them for their constant support, advice, and guidance for a newcomer ambassador in Dublin. I'm very grateful. And also, I'm very grateful to gracious presence of Honorable Sean Fleming, Honorable Minister of State for Finance, and Seshatu Chadiji, John Carroll, Duncan Stewart, and Lawrence Lee. I really appreciate your sparing time to join this discussion on St. Patrick's Day, where you have a lot of other engagements as well. Friends, not only today is a very happy coincidence that Holi and St. Patrick's Day are being celebrated on the same day, but also this year, this period is also a very interesting, very significant milestone for both of us. India is celebrating 75 years of its independence, and Ireland is marking 100 glorious years of independence. So as our Prime Minister has been urging us to look at the next 25 years when India will be celebrating 100 years of independence. He calls it Amrit Kal. And this is a period for all of us, all Indians, to do a deep introspection about our past 75 years, and then based on our experience, work out the strategy for the next 25 years. And as new ambassador to Ireland, I'm doing exactly the same thing. And I have been in Ireland for about 5 months, and I'm very happy to share my 3 key observations since I came here. First of all, there are very fascinating, multifaceted ties between India and Ireland, historic ties, and also at the multiple layers at which we are connected, at the level of top leadership, at the level of common people in the field of art and culture and history. So there are so many levels at which we are connected. And there is a deep affinity. There is a very natural, spontaneous affinity and goodwill between people of India and people of Ireland. And I have experienced it personally last 5 months. And also because I have served in many countries, all continents, I can feel the qualitative difference of the warmth of the Irish people. And I have become the staunchest advocate of Ireland as the most friendly country and most hospitable, most generous country in the world. Your natural warmth is so touching, so overwhelming. Second, friends, I feel very encouraged that India and Ireland are both extremely vibrant societies. The way Ireland has transformed itself from agrarian society into a knowledge-driven, high-tech society, and also acquired formidable strength in IT and medtech and pharma and agri-tech and cyber and artificial intelligence and Internet of Things and green energy, special nutrition technologies. The Ireland has become a mega powerhouse. And similarly, India also is trying its best to transform our economy and remove poverty. And we are fortunately now third largest economy in terms of purchasing power parity. We are the fastest growing economy among G20 countries. And also our strengths are complementary. The areas in which Ireland has pioneering status, there are also areas of great significance for India. And also there are areas in which India has a huge strength of its own. But our strengths are not in conflict. Our strengths, our assets are complementary. Similarly, our locations. Ireland's location is truly strategic, connecting not only with the Europe, but also transatlantic connectivity. And also myself, having worked in US and Canada, both countries, I'm aware of the deep ties that Ireland enjoys, very unique, special affinity that Ireland enjoys in both US and Canada. So this is something which fascinates me. Similarly, India's strategic location is also very, very critical, sitting at the center of the Indian Ocean and also in a very interesting part of the world. Third, the connectivity. The global connectivity of Irish industry is very, very interesting. And India also has a similar diverse linkages through diaspora and also through our industry. Like IT industry of India is really globally connected. Our medtech and pharmaceutical and entertainment industry, film industry is also very massively outreached globally. But in each of these, whether it's economic sectors, whether it's a strategic location and connectivities, both can be synergized. And they can be taken advantage of by people in India and people in Ireland to become each other's force multiplier. So on the whole, I see there is a huge potential for us to just sit together and plan calmly about the next 25 years of our glorious journey together for mutual benefit. There is a huge untapped opportunity because we have not focused on those minute details very, very closely. So I'm happy to share, because we are among friends, that I'm working on a four-pronged strategy. First of all, on both sides, India and Ireland, there is a need for greater ambition. There is a recurring feeling in India that Ireland is a 5 million population, and therefore it does not give the correct picture of Ireland being $500 billion economy. And also, Ireland is in merchandise trade, your global foreign trade is about $270 billion. In trade in services, Ireland's trade is 550 billion euros. The small population defies the reality. So we need a more ambitious, more granular approach. Secondly, we need a strategic vision on both sides. Rather than short-term ad hoc transactional attitude, we should look at a longer-term picture. Secondly, so far we have engaged each other in a top-down manner. We need to invert the approach and have a bottom-up approach, so that we build connectivities, build friendships, build mutually interested partners, connect their linkages from the ground level. Third, we need a much broader engagement between India and Ireland, much broader than the DFA and MEA, Ministry of External Affairs and for Department of Foreign Affairs led engagement. We need to have a kind of 360-degree engagement between India and Ireland, between line ministries here and line ministries in India, multiple sectors. There are fascinating opportunities that I'm exploring. Fourth, we need an engagement which is broader than Delhi-Dublin dialogue. Ireland, I have been privileged to visit at least 3 counties, Limerick, Galway, and Cork, and I'm fascinated by how interesting ecosystem of entrepreneurship and higher education and startup has grown over the counties. Similarly, India provides in a federal structure provides a lot of flexibility. If we look at different provinces, their own unique strengths can be excellent opportunity to choose which one is the best fit. In terms of the thematic areas, friends, I think because India and Ireland both are very passionate about culture, very rich about culture. And also, if I look at the history, then the biggest icons of India-Ireland friendship are in the domain of ideas. Whether it's a W.B. Yeats and Rabindranath Tagore, or Annie Besant, or Margaret Noble, or Sister Nivedita, or Margaret Cousins, who played a very critical role in women empowerment and mobilization of women in political and economic space. So there is a huge merit in not ignoring the aspect of cultural connect. The poetry, the philosophy, the arts, the films, they can play a huge role in generating the friendship and goodwill and catching the public imagination on both sides. Secondly, given our unique strengths and also unique needs, India is probably the youngest demographics in terms of G20 membership. We have a huge requirement of high quality education. We already have between Ireland strong ties of among education institutions, about 6,500 Indian students studying in world-class universities in Ireland. So I think education can be biggest connect between India and Ireland. In this, I think we have to go beyond the kind of transactional recruitment process into a broader institution-to-institution partnership, which also takes care of the expanding the catchment area for getting the best and most talented students from India, but also those institutions serve as flag carriers of India-Ireland friendship. This is one area I'm working very aggressively, and I have reached out to almost all universities in Ireland, and we are working together with them very closely. Hopefully, it will lead to more substantive partnership. Third area is the area of startup. I'm so happy to witness a very vibrant startup ecosystem in Ireland. And I'm very delighted to see that Ireland's uniqueness lies in having probably the world's highest success rate. Ireland has a startup success rate of about 16 to 17%, compared to the European Union's average of just 6-7%, and just 1 to 2% in India. So there is a huge opportunity for India and Ireland to connect startup ecosystems of two sides, and see how we can work together and benefit both parties. I think both have unique strengths in the startup segment, and can serve as a test bed for trying new technologies. India, because of its large manpower, can also help in very quickly scaling up the new solutions. And also, India can provide very interesting technology connectivities with many countries in the world. India, as you know, is also a very vibrant system of ecosystem and nurturing of ecosystem. We have third largest startup cluster in the world, about 66,000 startups, and we have about 90 unicorns. 42 unicorns were created in last year itself, and four new unicorns have come up in just this year. So there is a huge opportunity to learn from each other and be each other's strength in very niche area of a startup ecosystem. Fourth, in the business and investment, I see there is an opportunity for flow on both sides. In IT, in medtech and fintech, we had just discussion with the secretary dealing with energy and climate, and we identified there's an interesting complementarity in work being done in Ireland in offshore wind energy and green hydrogen. These are also areas of interest to India. So this is one area I wish to explore. Similarly, agri-tech and artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and entertainment industry as a whole has huge potential for us to work together. Lastly, friends, as Damian mentioned about the importance of democracies working together, democracies supporting each other, learning from each other. I really wish to focus on sharing experiences and innovations, not just in the business field, in technology field, but also in terms of our learning process, evolution in socio-economic transformation in a Republican democratic framework. What are the key challenges that our two societies are facing, and how are we responding to them, and nurturing the spirit of dialogue and polite, respectful conversation when world is becoming more and more surcharged? How do we learn from each other's tradition of mutual accommodation and also balancing of rights and duties and addressing inequities and disparities? And the emergence of social media, how are our societies coping with those new trends? And I'm very happy to share that on the occasion of International Women's Day, we had under the guidance and leadership of Honorable Lord Mayor of Dublin, we had a very fascinating India-Ireland panel discussion on women empowerment, and how both sides are taking very fascinating initiatives to encourage women into a broader, higher profile roles. We also had another India-Ireland roundtable on women in science and technology. And I was so happy to see that Irish universities are providing cutting edge opportunities for Indian women scientists and researchers to work in expanding horizons of knowledge. And also we had opportunity of listening some of the finest Irish women in science and technology, and also some of the great icons of Indian scientists. We identified a lot of interesting areas we can work together, and I'm following up on all those issues. Two interesting areas we are also working on is Given the importance of grassroots level people to people connectivity, I'm working with Irish schools and colleges, and also identified a number of high quality institutions in India, so that we can have a virtual cultural exchange between students here and students there to begin with, before we graduate to physical in person exchanges. Similarly, given the importance of a very inspiring personality that we are privileged to have in Ireland, President Higgins, and his very powerful message of solidarity and taking care of each other, uh, Poetry Ireland and Sahitya Academy of India have, in principle, agreed to hold a big event, high-profile event on theme of Beyond the Eye, one of the lines of President Higgins' poetry. We are going to host one poetry event between India and Ireland on this theme, Beyond the Eye. And also, we look forward to working together with our Irish friends on a large number of collaborative events. We need a much greater profile, a much greater awareness about Ireland in Indian cities, and also we need similar kind of resonance on Irish side. Once again, my deep gratitude to IIC and Prashant Suklaji and Damien for hosting this event. We are very touched by your warmth, your kindness. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. That was inspiring and wonderful. And we really must stop thinking of ourselves as a nation of 5 million, but rather the footprint in Ireland, in Europe, of the EU for India, where we have 400 million of the most prosperous and interesting consumers in the world. And that as we expand this concept of our global village, we're now going to have a wonderful and inspirational man, Dr. Shari, who is a strategic thinker and an expert in international relations, and again has a, it's difficult to follow Ambassador Mishra, but I think Dr. Shari is up to the mark, and it's making it very difficult for the people coming after. Okay, Dr. Shari, away with you.
Namaste. Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. Damien Nee, Ambassador Akhilesh Mishra, Mr. Prashant Shukla, and all other people who are part of this exercise. This is the second time I think I'm addressing a group of Irish community, and as I had said earlier, and as Ambassador Mishra has pointed out, the relationship between India and Ireland goes back to not just 1947 when India became independent, but long before that. Ireland's contribution to India's independence also is a chapter in itself, and I'm sure a number of books have appeared on this issue, and there is possibility of number of more books appearing on this issue. And a scholarly person like Ambassador Mishra, I'm sure, is going to set this task, and he is going to get at least half a dozen books out by this year end. I'm sure about it. And as Ambassador Mishra pointed out, the cultural relationship by itself is a very, very vast area. But very, very incidentally, India opened its embassy in Ireland in 1951. The Irish embassy in India was opened in 1964. So we will be completing 50 years of Irish embassy in India. Therefore, by 2024, when we complete the 50th year, I'm sure India-Ireland trade would have surpassed even from 5 million euro to it should have gone to 50 million euro. That should be the target that we should place ourselves. Your Minister, Excellency Robert Tory, is Robert Troy is in India now. He's a trade minister, and yesterday he has made an excellent speech and supported India's efforts of FTA with EU. So we look forward that India and Ireland would ultimately be able to engage together as two, not just as two democracies, but also as two strong economies. India, as we all know, is the third largest economy in the world, and 3 out of 4 very large economies of the world are in Asia. So Ireland came up with what they called the Asia Strategy, and it was Asia Strategy was part of the Irish strategy to engage with emerging economies in Asia. But this was almost 2 decades back. But in spite of this Asia strategy, Ireland and India could not come up with more than 5.5 billion euro trade. So I think now it is time for India and Ireland to reset the clock and go back not only to Asia strategy, but Ireland and India should have what we call a combined Indo-Pacific strategy. We should all know that from since 2015, what was formerly called Asia Pacific is now India Pacific, which is India centric India Pacific. And India has a very great stake as far as not only Indian Ocean and Pacific Ocean is concerned, but also a much larger area of India's influence and India's extended neighborhood. Now, India's extended neighborhood has two factors: the maritime extended neighborhood and also the land neighborhood, which borders on Central Asia and goes beyond Central Asia. Therefore, any investment in India ultimately results in an investment in Indo Pacific. So Ireland has the capacity to do this. And very importantly, in these last 40, 70 years, we have seen more than 150 large Irish companies have invested in India. Now, this 150 investments can go up to about 500 companies investing in India. And the advantage for Ireland, I need not recount the advantages because these companies have already invested in India. Besides being one of the largest, the third largest economy, India has a very robust judicial system, which is totally insulated from political and market influences. India has enormous scope for infrastructure development, and India, for that matter, gives a bouquet of investment. India is not a single market country. India has great potential on two things. One is the capacity to produce and also the capacity to consume. There are markets, there are economies in the world which has tremendous capacity to produce. For example, the Chinese have the great capacity to be a manufacturing unit for the whole world, but Chinese consumption is very low. There are countries which produce 90% of the chocolate in the world but don't consume even 0.9% of it, what they produce. So, India is one unique place where production and consumption have limitless capabilities and scope. So, that is one area where we should all be able to concentrate. Besides, there are newer areas in India, for example, education. More than $6 billion are spent by Indian students every year on education. Now imagine we have got more than 600 private colleges, private universities, and more than 2,000 public universities. So put together, it comes to something like more than 3,000 small and big universities. We have got 20 universities of excellence decided by the government of India, 10 in the private sector and 10 in the public sector. But it doesn't mean there are only 20, there are many more, but these 20 universities fill the criteria that the government has fixed. And each university is worth about 500 crores of Indian rupees. So you can imagine the scope and extent of investment in education. But education is only one field. More than that, tourism, health sector, defense, science and technology, Ayurveda, for example, a huge sector. And Ambassador mentioned about agriculture, agro-technology, and then communication, space, outer space. These are some of the areas where tremendous scope is available as far as Ireland is concerned. But more importantly, I think as far as trade relationships are concerned, we will have to have a more robust technology and robust methodology to interact with one another. India has got a GST, Goods and Services Tax System, which is a pan-Indian tax system. Earlier, there was not a GST, and every state had its own tax structure and system. So investment was difficult. Return on investment was even more difficult. But now return on investment is much easier. Taxation laws are very simple and very easy to follow. And more importantly, the Corporate Affairs Ministry has outlined a number of facilities in virtually rolling the red carpet as far as foreign capital investment is concerned. So if you combine all these factors, uh, a person like me need not explain the factors why Ireland should be here. In fact, we should be asking why Ireland is not yet in India, why Ireland is not one of the biggest investors in India, is a question that our industrialist would probably ask now. So I think sky is the limit, and I really compliment Ireland India Business Conference, and no word of appreciation will be enough as far as Prashant Shukla is concerned. He is a single man, one man army propagating Ireland India business, and I wish him all the best. I am always on the side of people like Prashant Shukla, and our ambassador Mishra is a great scholar, and I have great respect and regard for him. And under his leadership, and under the leadership of people like you, I am sure India and Ireland will end up as one of the strongest trading partners in the world in a multilateral setup, which we are facing to face all the challenges that we have. I'm extremely thankful to Prashant, Mr. Bimyan Nee, and Ambassador Akhilesh Mishra and Mr. Pankaj Jain for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you very much, Dr. Chari. Damien.
Again, the inspiration and the thought, and when Dr. Shari mentioned things that should be obvious to us all, but we haven't really cemented in our minds, that there is nothing new under the sun, but there's better ways of looking at them, and the scale of opportunity that you put forward there. I think there's a team here in this group alone that can significantly advance that. So we'll continue on now, and we have Dr. Lawrence Lee, and Lee and Nee are kind of similar, so we possibly have some sort of a connection somewhere. And it's the facilitation that's needed to make so many things happen. And Dr. Lawrence Lee's organization is one that is capable of providing that facilitation. So go ahead, Dr. or Lawrence, sorry, apologies.
Hi, good morning. Ambassador Mishra, Prashant, Damien, distinguished guests. Well, actually, I should say good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, depending on where you're joining us today. So I have a few slides to just go through the Enterprise Ireland overview on innovation partnership. But before that, let me say happy St. Patrick's Day and happy Holy Festival. And thank you very much for ISC for inviting me. And I'm delighted to speak to you in this very important conference. I agree completely with Ambassador Mishra that there are many business synergies between Ireland and India. And there are not only many opportunities for Irish companies to do business in India, and I believe Ireland is also an excellent place for Indian and Indian businesses to do business here. As Ambassador rightly pointed out, Ireland is one of the best places to start up. So I hope to see even more Indian entrepreneurs to start up and build their successful business here. My name is Lawrence Lee. I'm the Program Manager of Innovation Partnership in Enterprise Ireland. So for those who may not familiar with Enterprise Ireland, we are a government enterprise development agencies. We help to accelerate Irish companies in the global markets. What exactly do we do though? Enterprise Ireland just want to do 5 things, and we want to do these 5 things right. 1, we want to help Irish companies to export and drive job creation in all regions in Ireland. 2, we want to increase the number of new startups in this country. 3, we want to help Irish companies to develop competitive advantage through innovation and digitalization. 4, we encourage Irish companies to capitalize climate opportunities and green value creation. And 5, we want to be a trusted strategic partner with national and international stakeholders, including India. Well, in the past 2 years, I have to say many new mandates were added to us to help companies to accelerate their recovery from the global situations like Brexit or COVID pandemics. But we have no doubt that innovation actually plays a very important part in strengthening Ireland's competitiveness in this rapidly changing world. So let's look at the sort of a simplified ecosystem on the research and innovation landscape in Ireland. Ireland has a quite comprehensive range of support for innovation. Let's look at our parent department, the Department of Enterprise, Trade and Employment. Under DETI, Science Foundation Ireland, for example, is responsible for science excellence. IDA Ireland is responsible to attract and help overseas companies to come to and excel in Ireland. My organization, Enterprise Ireland, together with local enterprise office, is to help Irish companies to internationalize in the global market. Enterprise Ireland targets the small, medium, large Irish companies and high potential startups, and the local enterprise office focuses on the micro enterprises. We also, Enterprise Ireland also is the national contact for, the ambassador mentioned, the very large European innovation initiative called Horizon Europe, which is almost 100 billion euro program for research and innovation. And there are other agencies supporting innovation too. For example, the higher education authorities and the Health Research Board have their own programs, and different sector-specific agencies such as Targets for Food and environmental protection agencies for the energy have their own programs too. But the first question is, why innovation is important for business? Why we need to consider innovation? Now, an Enterprise Ireland study shows that product lifetime for Irish companies in the export market are very short. That means after a new product was launched, you can expect people initially were interested in the product. Its sales grew, but after some time, its sales reached a plateau and eventually declined. And then people perhaps are not interested anymore. And the whole cycle for the Irish companies lasts for only 1 to 3 years. It's very short. So if you want to stay in business, you better innovate and roll out new and better products frequently. Let's look at another set of data that we have on the RD&I innovation, basically. The innovation active companies are consistently and increasingly outperform the non-innovation active companies. And if we look at another set of graph, and this actually give a quantified comparison of the performance between the innovation active and non-innovation active companies. So the innovation active companies are more than 4 times better in turnover, 8 times better in export, and 30% better in domestic sales. I think all the figures shows only one point. Innovation is the core engine of growth for any ambitious companies. And one of our key roles is to help companies strengthening their innovation capability. Just a snapshot of some samples of the support we have on innovation. And together with our sister agencies, Ireland has quite a big range of support from the applied research level on the left-hand side of the graph to all the way to the close to market in company support on the right-hand side. From the early startup to supporting collaboration between research institutions and well-established companies. So let's have a closer look on some of them. For example, there are some samples for supporting startup in Ireland. The type of startup we can support, Enterprise Ireland can support, is called high potential startups. And the definition for high potential startup is likely to create 10 jobs and achieve €1 million in sales within 3 years of starting up. And the way we support it is through equity investment by application or competition. And we also have some other support, soft support like mentoring or feasibility studies, marketing research, etc. We also support something called Commercialization Fund, which is designed to help researchers and entrepreneurs to commercialize and spin out companies from research institutions. We have commercialization specialists in all of the Irish universities and institutions, Institute of Technologies, to help research and researchers to find the best route to commercialize their research. So if you're a researcher in Ireland, you may want to talk to one of them. We have a program called, a very popular program indeed, called New Frontiers, which is the training program for entrepreneurs to develop the capability to do business and succeed in commerce. And also Horizon Europe, I mentioned. Horizon Europe has 3 pillars. So the European Research Council, which supports the science excellency, the global challenges, which try to find technological solutions for challenges we are all facing today, and the European Innovation Council, the EIC, which supports companies and industry to develop their propositions and technology. So in this particular context for the startup, EIC has a program called Transition Program, which is a 131 million program to help company to do technology proof of concept and spin out. And all the EIC programs are supported by something called Business Acceleration Services, which provide mentoring, access to global market, excuse me, and ecosystem to really help companies to really develop their proposition. So there's another sample set of support that we give to companies for innovation and scaling up. So we support the companies to carry out the in-house R&D to really develop their capability in-house for research and development, either for technical or business innovation. We support around 150 to 200 projects per year for companies in Ireland. And also we support companies which have a technical challenge that they cannot solve by themselves, to collaborate with research institutions, try to find a solution for them. My program, the Innovation Partnership, actually falls into this category. Hopefully I will talk a little bit more on the Innovation Partnership Program later. We also help companies to access different initiatives and networks and opportunities. For example, like the European Space Agencies, and they have tendering requirements, and they work with Irish companies on developing their technology and proposition for the future use in the European space stations. Again, European Horizon Europe program has specific group of support called accelerators, which actually is a very big support, 1.16 billion euro support for companies to scale up. And not only supporting startup companies and companies to really do their research, but we are trying to encourage companies to work together on a sector-wide effort to collaborate together, to innovate together, support like technology centers funded by Enterprise Ireland and IDA Ireland together, is try to develop industrial-led research agenda that can carry out by Irish universities to develop some common usable technologies for the industry. We have the $500 million in Disruptive Technology Innovation Fund, which support collaboration between companies and research organizations to develop demonstration for disruptive technologically innovations. The Regional Technology Cluster Funds helps companies to talk to each other and work together on the common technology challenge. And again, Horizon Europe Pathfinder program is a 350 billion fund to support collaboration for common challenges. So I mentioned the program that I'm responsible for in Enterprise Ireland Innovation Partnership Program, which actually help companies in Ireland has the technical difficulties, but they don't really have resources or don't have the technical capability to find a solution. Then our support can help them to talk to and work together with research institution in Ireland, and we can fund up to 80% of the research costs. So basically, that's the snapshot of my presentation. And I suppose I would like to really want to see more Indian companies in Ireland. And or Irish company set up by Indian, come to us and see how we can support you in innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lawrence. That was fascinating. And again, it's facilitation that people need. The world is awash with money. You've got to pay the Swiss now to mind it. And the reason is that it's hard to find safe and secure investments. And that, in a way, is where our next speaker, John Carroll, partner with Crowley Miller Solicitors, which are one of Ireland's leading legal firms, that the passports for investment and assorted projects allied to that are wonderful opportunities for foreign firms to come to Ireland and find positive possibilities. So we'll let John, who is a wonderful, wonderful, unassuming and highly competent and charming character, go next. And he'll do his party piece possibly as well.
John, you are mute. Please unmute yourself.
A rare condition.
Thank you, Mr. Nia. And as it's a bit early for a song at this stage, maybe later this evening I might be singing one of my favorite songs, but I understand we might get some music later from another speaker. So first of all, good morning to Your Excellency Ambassador Mishra, to my fellow keynote speakers, to those of you who are logging in from India, good afternoon. And first of all, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Ireland-India Council and Mr. Shukla for giving me the opportunity to present to such a distinguished audience. Now, as you'll see, the theme of this conference is unlocking trade, tourism, and investment opportunities. And from our perspective, once an opportunity is identified, a company or an individual will require corporate legal services, and that is where my firm, Crowley Miller, can assist. And the first part of my presentation will briefly give you a background about Crowley Miller. The second part of my presentation will deal with our immigrant investor program. That's where we assist investors from India who wish to apply for a visa under that particular program. So the second part of my presentation will deal with that. In terms of the presentation slides that I'm going to go through now, there's probably too many. Time is short, so I won't be able to go through all of them. So I'll go through them quite quickly, and I'll concentrate on the relevant slides, and I'll bring you through the important points. So as you will see, my firm was established in 1989. Hugh Miller is our corporate. He's the managing partner of the firm. Then there's myself, so I'm an equity partner in the firm. I specialize in employment law and litigation, but I'm also the firm's business development partner, and it was in that role that I set up the Indian desk here and also the Chinese desk. You'll see that one of my hobbies is rugby, and I'm a disciplinary officer with World Rugby. And I know rugby is obviously very popular in Ireland, and I know cricket is the main sport in India, and while we have a very good rugby team, our cricket team is getting there, and I know we've had some notable successes recently, one where we beat Pakistan, so I'm sure everyone was delighted with that result. Just in terms of the team that we have, in terms of the corporate team that we have, I'm going to go through these slides quite quickly. Emma heads up the department, and then she's supported by Dennis Jacobson, then Catherine Keane, she is in charge of the property department, and she's always in corporate deals. She's always involved on the property side of those deals. Next, and more importantly, is Anjusha. So Anjusha Putan Pural is a solicitor who qualified as a solicitor in India back in 2016, and she came to Ireland in 2019, and she had to retrain here, and next year she will qualify as a lawyer in Ireland. And Jusha is an excellent member of our staff, and for Indian companies dealing with a firm like ourselves, I think we have a great advantage in that Anjusha obviously can speak the language and is also familiar with the legal system in India, which is a great help. And obviously investors from India, people, it's a bit like Ireland, they always like to deal with their own, and she's very personable and I think a great addition to our firm. Next is Jerry O'Grady. He's a business consultant company secretary, and what Jerry experiences, he can set up companies for Indian investors, and he can also raise funds for them in Ireland. And he's a considerable amount of experience in that particular field. That's a snippet of the services that we provide, and they're standard, but again, the standard services in the corporate side of law. Crowley Miller is also a member of Mackerel International, and that's a network of legal firms around the world where we can refer business to lawyers worldwide, and in turn they can refer their clients to Ireland. And I'll give you an example of that in terms of one of the big corporate deals that we did last year was we were acting for a company called Perigord, and they were bought by Tech Mahindra. I think everyone's familiar with Tech Mahindra, who have a big presence in Ireland. And they bought this Irish company for €40 million. And as part of that sale, we had to engage a firm of lawyers in Mumbai. And through Mackerel International, we came across an excellent firm of solicitors who assisted us in that transaction. The other transaction that I would like to bring to everyone's attention is the sale of a company called Decawave. That was a startup that we were got involved in back in the early 2010. It was ultimately sold in 2020 in the biggest deal in Ireland for $400 million to a company who were supplying chips to Apple iPhones. So that was the biggest deal in Ireland that year. And while we have a small corporate team, we can punch above our weight, and that was a great example. And we won an award for that particular deal. Then just touching on the relationship between Ireland and India, a lot of our speakers already spoken about that excellent relationship, so I won't dwell too much on that. It's 72 years, however, in terms of our history. Then we have the trade. As was pointed out, for a small country, again, we do punch above our weight. And for we did 1.2 billion bilateral trade in 2019. I think this year, hopefully after COVID, we'll increase that. Now, the next couple of slides is just in terms of the various contexts that we've had with India over the years now, and I know Minister Troy is out in India at the moment, so I'm going to briefly go through these particular slides. That's our Prime Minister, Mr. Varadkar, on the right-hand side, or Taoiseach, and he is of Indian extraction. I think his mother is from India. There's some more photographs which I won't dwell too much on. That's Mr. Varadkar again, and Ambassador Sandeep, who was Ambassador Mishra's predecessor. There's some more photographs again, so I'll just pass through those. Then, in terms of the foreign direct investment in Ireland, we've 6 of the top Indian IT services companies here, and there's also in total around 60 Indian companies. And as I said, we wish to. The government is keen to try and grow that, and there's a list of the companies down here who are present here, including Tech Mahindra. Then turning to the Immigrant Investor Program, where we've been providing advice to investors for the last 6 or 7 years or so, and to date, under our advice, we have accounted for approximately €75 million of investment into the Irish economy, which is a great figure for a firm such as ours. This particular program was introduced by the government in 2012. And the main aim of the program was to create inward investment, and particular to create employment opportunities in Ireland and not only Dublin, but across the country. And as well as that, the other purpose, obviously, of the program is that it enables investors to acquire residence in Ireland to get a visa. Now, one of the preconditions of applying for this program is that you have to be a high net worth individual, and you have to be able to show that you're worth at least €2 million. So I think that probably covers a lot of our audience today. In joking, obviously, when applying for the program, you submit a business plan, and that goes. And you also obviously have to prove there's money laundering rules that you have to get through, and that is then evaluated by an evaluation committee, and they look at your business plan and your background and the financial side of things. So while on this particular slide there's reference to 4 investment options, the 2 main options at the moment are an enterprise investment. So to avail of this program and to obtain your visa, you have to invest €1 million in an Irish enterprise, and that sum of money has to be invested for 3 years, a minimum of 3 years and a maximum of 5 years. The other popular option is the last one, which is an endowment. That's where you invest €500,000 in an Irish charity. Now, if 4 investors come together, that threshold can be reduced to 5 investors come together, that threshold can be reduced to €400,000. So that would be a combined investment of €5 million. Of 1 million. Sorry, €2 million. 5 fours. My maths isn't that good. So in terms of the advantages of this particular program, you only have to stay in Ireland for 1 day a year. You can bring your family and your children up to 24 years of age, so they can go into the Irish education system. So that's a great advantage for a lot of investors under this particular program. After 5 years, and if everything goes to plan, the visa will be you will in time then be allowed to apply for a long-term residency, and invariably that is what happens. Why Ireland? So the advantages: we've a pollution-free environment. There's strong rules of law. We are the only English-speaking country in the EU after England has exited after Brexit, and that is a very big advantage because we have a lot of financial firms from London coming into Ireland now. So, as an example of how Ireland is benefiting after Brexit, we have an excellent education system, similar to what one of the speakers referred to in India, and we're very attractive for Indian nationals coming to Ireland. And we have a lot of Irish doctors here, nurses, etc. And obviously in IT, we've a huge amount of IT experts who have come from India here. And one of the reasons why is that they've trained here and then they've gone on to work here. We're obviously a member of EU, and lastly, we have a very favourable tax regime, a corporate rate of tax of 12.5%, which is increasing to 15%, but it's still a very attractive corporation tax rate. To apply for the immigrant investor program, you have to make an application without committing funds. Then that, as I said, that application will include financial details and also a biz plan. You will make the, and then you have to provide evidence ultimately that you've made the investment. That particular application is assessed by a valuation committee, and that's composed of senior officials from the Irish government departments. And they assess an application on basis of the profile, as I said, of the applicant, in particular their financial wherewithal, the commercial viability of the project, employment outcomes assisted with the proposed investment, and the overall benefit to the Irish state. And the overall benefit primarily relates to the amount of jobs created by the particular enterprise. And as I said there, that I just said that the purpose of that is creation or maintenance employment. Particular reference is given to investments in social infrastructure. So when Crowley Miller got involved in advising investors back in 2015, investors were primarily at that stage investing in hotels in Dublin and down the country. That has moved on now, and hotels are will no longer really be passed by the Irish government. Social housing is the main one at the moment, and then we have primary health cares and nursing homes. The program doesn't have an option for you can't purchase property. It has to be, as I said, one of the above. And hospitality is excluded. There are schemes around Europe and the different countries around Europe, which are similar to Ireland, but they're not as rigidly structured or rules applied. So Ireland is one of the leading IIP countries. The EU were investigating other countries because it was just too easy to get passports or to get a visa in Europe, and that's why in these particular they came out with a report where they investigated various countries and how the scheme was operated, but Ireland passed that with flying colours. So that concludes my presentation. So I would like to say a word in Irish. So go raibh míle maithagad agus lá féile pádraig sana díobh, and that means in Irish, obviously, thank you all very much and happy St. Patrick's Day.
Gosh, John, thanks a million. Well done. And
thank you, everyone.
Again,
on time.
Oh, congratulations on that too. So I think without further ado, we'll proceed and we'll have Pankaj Jain, because he is just so inspirational and so entertaining. And then we can have a chat afterwards. Go ahead, Pankaj.
Damian, thank you very much. And thank you, Prashant and the Ireland India Council for inviting me to address this seminar. I have been to Ireland 3-4 times during my career, and I can say that I just love the country. I went to Kilkenny, had a meeting with the mayor also, and that was arranged beautifully by Prashant. And the warmth I got from the people of this country, I can never forget. Before me, the ambassador, Mr. Mishra, and Shishadri Chariji have covered very useful points on the areas where we can have more interaction between India and Ireland in trade, industry, startups, education, investment, and also collaboration in third countries in the Asia-Pacific, Indo-Pacific region, which can open absolute new areas for joint collaboration and, raising the connections between India and Ireland for mutual economic benefits. Today, of course, I'll be limiting my talk. I've given earlier a talk also, but that was on biomass, I recall, last year in the same council. And also once in Dublin, I was invited for giving a talk on business opportunities between India and Ireland. But today, I will be restricting myself to possibilities and alternatives in non-conventional energy sources. I'll give you a little scenario about where India stands in power. India has an installed capacity of 438 gigawatt, which by Ireland standards should be pretty high. And it's unfortunately mainly fossil at the time being. It's about 61% fossil, which means based on coal, oil, and gas. Nuclear is about 7 gigawatt, which is 2%. Hydro is about 10%, 46 gigawatt. And non-conventional, that is the area which we will talk about, is we have an installed capacity of 100 gigawatt, which is going to go up to 175 gigawatts in this current year. And including hydro, the Honorable Prime Minister has planned to increase the non-fossil installed capacity in India to 500 gigawatt by the year 2030. So as you can see, we have a tremendous experience in the power sector, and especially in the non-conventional energy sector. As perhaps you know that we have surplus installed power capacity, but the per capita consumption in India is still low. And the other issue is mainly it is based on fossil fuels. We have electrified all our towns and villages. Perhaps you would also be aware that India was among the nations which recently in Glasgow has committed to capping the global warming to 1.5 degrees above the pre-industrial age, and to make the world carbon neutral by a certain date, which for India is, I think, 2070. Now, this would be possible if we go and more into non-conventional energy sources, because fossil fuels create pollution, and therefore there is a huge need to shift to non-fossil sources. I mean, hydroelectric power, of course, is one option, but it's a very expensive option. And the scope is also limited. And that's one of the reasons why India is expanding into nuclear and nuclear power, and also non-conventional energy sources. This would be also important from the point of view that fossils are not going to last forever, and therefore there would be a scare about the security of energy requirements for the country. I mean, if you have a scarcity, then your whole economic, the national economy would take a hit. So we have to plan sufficiently in advance. I'm sure to a large extent that would be true of Ireland also. Perhaps you know that India is blessed with the abundance of non-conventional energy sources. And we have a lot of sunshine throughout the year. Solar forms about 31% of our installed capacity. But you also have biomass. That's the tree waste and human waste, the cow waste, and vegetable waste. That's biomass. And then you also have tidal energy, the ocean energy. With the rising tide, it goes up, water goes up, and when it flows down, you can create electricity. Then you have geothermal energy in India. You have springs, hot springs. When they come out, they come out as steam, which can create electricity. And there are some projects on that going on. And there's wind energy. Wind forms about 10% of our installed capacity, which is installed capacity, as I was mentioning, was about 100 gigawatt, which is projected to be 175 gigawatt by the end of this year. India, incidentally, is the fourth largest country in the world in non-conventional installed capacity. So that's the level which you are dealing with. And the wind capacity achieved itself in India is 10 gigawatt by now. And if you look at solar, between 2014 and now, that's 2022, we have increased the capacity from 2.6 gigawatt to 46 gigawatt. I'll come to the business opportunities in these sectors between India and Ireland. It takes solar. As you perhaps know, there are a large number of components which go into the solar panels. They actually are imported from China. I think that's true for most of the countries in the world. We do assemble, but many components of the solar panels come from China. For example, the top plate and many other items inside. But India is an expert in installation of the solar farms. So if Ireland is keen to expand into solar farms as an alternative to either fossil or any other, or nuclear or hydroelectric or whatever, or you want to expand your power production, your power capacity, then you may like to look into this. This is an opportunity we have. Similarly, India is good in installing biomass plants and wind energy plants. We have a large number of companies in the south, in Karnataka and Telangana, who have JVs with European countries, and they're setting up wind farms all over the south of India, in Karnataka, Gujarat, Kerala, Maharashtra, Lakshadweep, and Jaisalmer. And we could do wind farms in your country if you like. You might like to explore this issue also. I'll give you some examples of solar. For example, we have a large solar electric plant in Madhapur near Bhuj in Gujarat, which is used for sterilizing milk cans. And this minimizes the use of firewood and cow dung, which was earlier used as fuel for sterilization of the cans. We have also installed 300,000 solar pumps mostly in rural areas, which were not that accessible. So you get free electricity for pumping out the water. And incidentally, India has lowered the solar tariff to 1.99 rupees, which would be 1/50th, I think, of a euro per unit, which is very, very low. I mean, and you probably be aware that India and France have initiated this International Solar Alliance, which is bound to benefit all the countries of the world. Our Prime Minister, dynamic Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, has done wonderful in this and many other issues in non-conventional energy. And this solar alliance is to mobilize 1,000 billion US dollars by 2034, installing solar energy plants all over the world. Now, just to come to wind power, India is a superpower, and we have large wind farms clusters in Nagarkoil, in Madurai, in Tamil Nadu, and in Andhra Pradesh, Karnataka, Gujarat, Kerala, Maharashtra, Lakshadweep, and Jaisalmer. Our installed capacity is something like 10 gigawatt. And we also have hybrid models. We're combining wind and solar. We have technical collaboration with, as I was mentioning, with European countries like Denmark, Austria, Germany, Spain, and Netherlands, but we are excellent in installing these. And there are a large number of components in this which India manufactures. So that could also be an opportunity if you are interested in setting up wind farms in your country. Now, coming to gobar gas or biofuel plants, we have a large number of companies which can set up these. You might like to go in for a tender to invite some Indian companies to set them up in your country. But I believe you have a large number of cows. Prashant was telling me, large number of farms, and the cow dung is going to waste and it is piling up, and you definitely want to convert that into energy to heat your houses and for any other purposes, to generate electricity in isolated farmhouses or whatever, and at least be useful, rather than just go to waste. Now, regarding tidal energy, we have ideal conditions in the Gulf of Kutch in Gujarat, and National Hydroelectric Power Corporation of India has set up a 900 megawatt tidal energy power plant there. So here's another opportunity, because you also have a seafront, I think next to Cork, where one of the crashes took place of Air India. You could maybe utilize our expertise in this. Now in geothermal, we have several hot springs in India, and we've set up experimental projects in Parvati Valley in Himachal and Puga Valley in Ladakh. So I'm not sure whether you have hot springs in your country and you like to take advantage of our initiative or share experience, share knowledge, or want us to install any projects there. Very recently, our Prime Minister has gone into this new venture called green ammonia and green hydrogen. You might have heard of it. It's very simple. It's actually by ionization and electrolysis of water, you separate hydrogen, and that can be put in tanks and used as a fuel. And the electricity required to do this job, the electrolysis part, can also be from solar or wind energy. So there itself, it's a double use of non-conventional energy. Now, I was listening to other speakers. Actually, India and Ireland, through the modem of the India Urban Council, we need to synergize our energies. After all, the world is a global village. So wherever we have our strengths and you have your strengths, we should combine them and even go into third countries. And I was listening at the talk, Indian students go to so many foreign countries and study there, including East European countries. And we are online with so many universities of the world, especially US, I believe UK. So why shouldn't Ireland be one of those countries? You have Trinity College, a wonderful college where I believe you already have Indian students. You should tie up with the large number of private universities in India, large number, and give a joint certificate at the end of the course. That would be a very good collaboration with India. And I was hearing about social housing. India has a tremendous experience in social housing because we have a large number of people who were without houses. The Prime Minister has initiated this Prime Minister's Awas Yojana, and in the past also we had a very number of schemes. So here again there is a possibility of lot of possibility of collaboration between the two countries. A very large number of sectors were mentioned. So while my topic is limited, I would certainly like to see in future that India and Ireland, keep on collaborating more and more. And in this, India-Ireland Council should play a very leading part. And of course, our ambassador based in Dublin is a very key functionary for anything to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was wonderful. And again, shared visions are important, and then finding a narrative to put them together and make them feasible and viable are key. Now we have our most charismatic Irishman, probably, other than Michael D, who is one of the world's leading environmentalists and visionaries, whilst being practical and with his feet on the ground, and with over 400 TV programs behind him on environmental issues. And highly talented. So Duncan is going to introduce himself here with a small piece of Irish music on the clarinet. And then after Duncan has spoken, we'll have some questions and answers and a discussion piece. Go ahead, Duncan.
I think I'll frighten everybody away if I keep playing this clarinet. But thank you. That was Danny Boyne. And basically, you know, we're talking about St. Patrick's Day today, but if we look at our history in Ireland, we went through a massive famine 150 years ago. And, you know, Ireland suffered hugely from that. And, you know, a lot of our memories now and our songs are about emigration, which was a huge issue in Ireland for a long time. You know, so many of our people had to leave Ireland, you know, because of starving conditions. And, you know, we've learned a lot from those lessons. And we do understand, too, that there are huge pressures on the environment today. And we have, you know, as a species, humans are very much out of control in terms of managing our impacts that we create across the planet, you know. And I was really pleased there with Panji Jan's wonderful, inspirational talk there about, you know, how India is addressing these issues of climate change, for example, you know. And I'm really, really fascinated by the amount of projects that are going on with renewable energy in India across all different areas, and your success rates, you know. And, you know, I look here in Ireland, you know, we've got great natural resources and renewable energy, and we are using them now, coming late, really. But our emissions are very, very high, you know, relative to, say, India. You know, our emissions are about 6 times the greenhouse gas emissions of India. And, you know, if I kind of stand back from where we are today and look at over my lifetime, you know, and over, if you like, the time that India has become independent, that period, you know, the amount of change we've created to the atmosphere, you know, we have now altered the atmosphere with our greenhouse gas concentrations by a 50% increase over what it has been for over 800,000 years. That's a massive change that we've done in that very short period in the history of life on this planet. And we, at the same time, over those years, we have seen collapse in species, in diverse species across the planet. You know, we're now down to 1/3 of wildlife populations that were there if we go back 50 years ago. So we have really hammered wildlife. You know, populations have plummeted and species are extinguishing at a massive rate. And we see the problems now of plastic and microplastic spreading everywhere into all of our oceans, up onto our highest mountains, into our ice sheets, everywhere. You know, the impacts of this, and it's not just that it's spreading everywhere across the planet, but our plastic waste and the micro and the nanoplastic is getting into our bloodstream, not just of humans, but of all species, and even into our brains. You know, we have to realize that we as a species are not managing what the damage we're doing. We're not kind of working within the safe planetary boundary systems. And, you know, I'm very conscious now, and following on from what Panji Jan was saying, you know, and what the ambassador was saying there a minute ago, we really need to kind of, Ireland and India, work together on this. There's so many things we can do, and there's so many innovations that can come out of what we do, as Lawrence Lee was talking about in terms of the importance of innovation. There's so much we can do in collaboration and with startups in this area, you know, and, you know, it's only through collaboration that we do this. And what's great about Ireland and India is we have come through a similar history, you know, and we've come out of that, and we got our independence. We got our independence 75 years ago, or sorry, 100 years ago, whereas you got your independence 50 years ago. And we're celebrating that this year also, as you are celebrating your 50th, your 100th, or your 75th. Yes, I'm mixing them up there, by the way. But so I'm just saying that we have also got a common language. You know, we all speak English. So we can do an awful lot of collaboration together. And mentioned there about our universities and our schools collaborating, I kind of feel there's huge opportunities there for much, much more collaboration than we are doing, you know. So I kind of feel what Prashant is doing with this event and has been doing over the last couple of years in bringing this dialogue, you know, between India and Ireland together and focusing on issues that are important. We can do so much through this dialogue, and it can really create major changes, you know. And as I say, my focus is really on, you know, protecting this planet from the impacts that we humans are doing. You know, when we think we're only one of millions of species, but we are the one species that is destroying the planet, you know, and we have to wake up. You know, we have to look to our children and our younger generation. What is it going to be like in 20 or 30 years' time? When we look at the rate of damage that we've created, you know, we go back over that 800,000 years where we had, if you like, all sorts of variations in our climate system and in biodiversity and everything on the planet, but over incredibly long time spans. But in the last 50 years, we look at the damage that we're doing, and that damage has been accelerating. You know, we are, you know, the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change conference in Glasgow earlier pointed out how serious the condition is now for us, you know, with climate change and the extreme events that are unfolding across the world with tornadoes, hurricanes, you know, storm surges, droughts, wildfires, heat events. You know, there's so many of these impacts happening, and they're accelerating at a massive rate. So we're facing huge shocks in what's coming down the stream. And we really need to, all of us, collaborate on this, because if we don't do it and if we don't collaborate, you know, I really see no future for our children. And it's up to us. And when I look at our panel here today, the experts that are on that panel, you know, that are sharing their knowledge here today with each other and with all the big audience that's listening into us today, we can do an awful lot in this space with those experts in their various fields to remedy these problems. It's within our reach to do so. It can be done. And I believe India has an incredibly important role to play in this. And Ireland too, even though we're a tiny little country compared to India, you know, from a population point of view, India, I think, is about 280 times our population. So we're minuscule. But in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, our emissions are 6 times India's emissions per person. So we have a lot to learn from India. And India could probably learn a lot from us in terms of the mistakes that we've been doing, you know. But really, I'm more thinking of what we can do with innovation and what we can do with, you know, bringing new green technologies, renewable energy technologies into fruition. And how, you know, we have to get off fossil fuel, coal especially being the worst of all, and then followed by oil, you know, diesel and petrol, and then by natural gas. And we look at, if you like, now the crisis in Ukraine and how it has made us realize our exposure to energy. You know, when you think of all that gas that we're importing into Europe from Russia, you know, all those billions, the 640 billion that Russia has now built up in reserves from its export of gas and oil into Europe mainly. That money that we have really been giving when we go out and buy our petrol and our gas, we don't seem to make the connection that we are so dependent on these imports of these fuels that it can lead into a war situation. And we have to wean off this situation. You know, we must get off burning fossil fuel. And, you know, the innovations that can come out of collaboration can be huge in terms of what we can do in this space. So I'm very keen on anything we can do and help in this way. You know, Damien and I have a very clear focus, for example, on environmental education in our schools. You know, embedding, say, climate science and biodiversity and circular economy and ways to reduce pollution. You know, all of these matter hugely to our young generation. They understand, those kids understand what's facing them in terms of the impacts from climate change and biodiversity loss and from plastics and all these big pressures. And they want a future. And we owe it to our young generation to focus on them now and to inform them and to show them where the solutions are that can go the right direction with renewable energy, etc. So I'm very keen to kind of see collaboration between Indian schools and with our schools in Ireland. We have a program going on here at the moment called EcoEd for All, and it basically brings schools, teachers, first of all, in our secondary schools, mainly at the moment, even though primary schools are important, and trade schools also. But the whole idea of it is to inform teachers and then let the teachers then bring the content that we provide for them in terms of environmental education in all these different environmental themes into their schools and into projects. So they learn, first of all, the issues, they learn about the solutions, they then start to explore ways they can, in their schools or in their homes or in their local communities, engage in solutions to these things. Now, we've got a program now going on with Northern Ireland, which is part of Britain. And we have this cross-border initiative taking place now with Cooperation Ireland, a cross-border, where our schools are twinning with Northern Ireland schools in environmental education. And this is proving to be really, really good because we're learning from children in Northern Ireland and their teachers, and we the same are sharing our knowledge with them. That same idea could be introduced between Ireland and India, and it would be a really good way of bringing children together. You know, for example, I'd love to see women on this program today because women are critically important in all of this area. And I notice it's all us men here today on the panel, but you know, we need to kind of engage women in this program too. You know, and if we take the Sustainable Development Goals as a core area, and all those 17 United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, if we can bring these into our schools and mainstream them in our schools, and then those children can bring this into their local community, this knowledge, and we can come up with really good solutions for urban schools, for rural schools, etc. So, you know, it is the message that I would love to see all of us as a group today trying to bring this into fruition, a method of sharing knowledge of solutions in these environmental areas. And of course, that can then spread to other areas, into social issues, etc., and, you know, health issues all over. But let's start with environment, because remember, you know, on this planet Earth, the only living planet that we know about, it is the biosphere that maintains all living forms. So we are one species in millions. And without a healthy environment and biosphere and biodiversity and nature, we cannot exist. We cannot sustain ourselves on this planet. So if we damage and we continue to destroy rainforests globally and impact the oceans as we are doing, there is no future for us as a species, and we are going to face massive shocks. So clearly, can we, all of us, you know, move on from this after this event today and see how can we make this happen, that we can focus on our children, try and get children sharing knowledge virtually online in programs like we're doing here, where each school could twin with each other and their teachers could kind of be, the teachers from both schools would be the kind of the catalyst to create this happening. So that's my main message, and I hope I don't bore you with this. And my apology there for my noise I made with my clarinet. But, you know, I kind of felt that St. Patrick's Day, you know, evokes a lot of memories to us, and our immigration that we went through, and the hardship of that. And so much of our music is quite sad because of those losses that we incurred, you know, people going abroad to the US or to Australia or places and being lonely for their family and for their loved ones. And the music, you know, that song would kind of, you know, evoke that sort of message. So anyway, thank you for listening to me, and I hope I haven't bored anybody. And I look forward to more and more of this, the work that Prashant is doing. And I certainly want to meet you, Mr. Ambassador, sometime soon, and likewise others here. You know, Lawrence Lee from Enterprise Ireland and people like this. I really love to meet up with you here too. But I'd love to come to your country, and I'd love to kind of learn more about India, and maybe we could do things together more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Duncan. And Prashant is in the process of organizing a trade delegation towards the end of September, early October. And I think all of us here might end up meeting up on that trip. And I've been to India many times, and it never ceases to amaze me. It's just wonderful and joyful. And I brought some people with me 7 or 8 years ago. And after 2 hours, 2 of them who were very astute people turned around and said, if we went home now, it would have been worthwhile. They just felt just so invigorated by the energy and the enthusiasm that was manifest everywhere. Now, Prashant, would you look after the
yes, now, Damien.
Prashant is just a wonderful, wonderful person.
Thank you, everyone. Actually, now we have actually the interaction with our participants. They are participating from actually number of different platforms, and some of the questions they are posing, and maybe it was not touched upon in this discussion. So one is coming about this aviation sector, and the Lynn Frederick D'Souza is very keen to know about this sector. If this panel give some information about that, or if there's any possibility. Then we have Honorary Consulate General of Dahi Murchu. He is discussing about actually
Dr. Dahi Omorhu.
Yes, he sometimes he discuss about actually the possibility of actually trilateral possibility between India, Ireland, and West Africa. So that's something, and he brings that actually point most of the time. And we have here, yes, number of actually other questions. But before we answer these questions, this forum is actually for between these actually experts for the interaction. If anyone wants to bring any point, and His Excellency Ambassador, if wants to make any observation from this, then Dr. Chari, and followed with Mr. Jain and John and Lawrence. Your Excellency, you are mute, I think.
First of all, my sincere gratitude to all the speakers. I was listening with great attention. I learned a lot and benefited a lot. And the resonance from your spirit, like really touching. I'm very, very impressed and very, very motivated. And based on this dialogue, in fact, I have already identified many action points of follow-up. I would not go into detail, but with each speaker, I have found some action points to develop India-Ireland partnership, and I will approach them subsequently. Uh, I'm really grateful that all of you stayed together for 2 hours, sparing time. Shashad Chadiji, I know how busy you are, but you spared so much time. And all our Irish, Prashantji, Pankajji, I must thank you. Your area is a high priority area for us, and I will not discuss here, but we will follow up on ideas that you suggested. Similarly, Duncan Stewart, your idea of education, environmental education and twinning of schools is really valuable, and I definitely wish to work on this. Similarly, the music and dance, I think this is because our music and dance, they are so different from Ireland's. There's a lot of opportunity to share and co-create new things. Similarly, the immigration immigrant investor program and attracting high net worth investors into Ireland, particularly in the real estate and property segment, is a great area that we have not explored, and it is very high on my agenda. Once again, my very sincere gratitude to each one of you, and very happy St. Patrick's Day. Thank you.
Dr. Chari, your observations. You are mute. Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Prashant. As Ambassador Mishra said, a lot of good points have come up, and that forms the agenda for our next meeting, rather. So I'm like Mr. Daniel said, if you are bringing a team of Irish trades businessmen here to India, I think we should also take initiative in coming there. And very incidentally, His Excellency the Ambassador will tell you more about one of the organizations that I'm associated with, that is RIS, Research and Information Center. Research and Information System, RIS, is an autonomous body under the Ministry of External Affairs. Now, it functions very much within the control of the Ministry of External Affairs, but we have a multi-ministerial agency in the sense the Commerce Secretary, the Finance Secretary, the Foreign Secretary, and Expenditure Secretary, and Science and Technology Secretary. These 5 people, plus the Deputy Governor of Reserve Bank, are all ex officio members of our board. I am also a member of the board. So we, our purpose, rather our agenda, our mandate is to establish greater trade links and facilitate foreign trade with other countries, and also look at all kinds of bilateral and multilateral trade arrangements. So I am part of the team. So I would very much invite all of you to come to RIS, and also I will bring a team from RIS to Ireland one of these days. We will have to jointly work on that, and I would rather ask Ambassador Mishra to take a lead in this. He knows the system very well. I particularly like what Mr. Lawrence Lee said about India-Ireland trade. While I mentioned about what Ireland can do for India, he was the first person who said how India can invest in Ireland. Indian investment in Ireland is also an important aspect, which I overlooked. Thank you, Lawrence. But you should know that once you give us some place, we will not leave much of Ireland for you, probably. The Indians are good at that. I remember once when we had gone to South Africa and we had a meeting with Nelson Mandela. He said, we never play football with India because whenever we give a penalty corner to Indian, they immediately start a shop in that corner. So, I mean, we are good at establishing business. So I'm sure I'm going to look up into those opportunities where India can invest in Ireland, and India can contribute towards increasing the science and technology part of Ireland also. I'm particularly I will emphasize on the cooperation as far as education is concerned. We have, as I told you, some of the best educational institutions. Two of the institutions which are recognized by the Government of India as institutions of eminence are BITS Pilani and Manipal University, that is MAHE, Manipal Academy of Higher Education. These are two private sector universities which are recognized by the government as institutions of eminence. Their total worth is more than about 5,000 crores. And as far as Manipal University is concerned, I teach geopolitics and international relations in that university. And I'm also the member of the planning and monitoring board of the university. So as officer of the board, I can say that Manipal University has excellent opportunity to tie up between universities in Ireland and get students, invite faculty, and also send faculty to students from your university. So we can have this kind of a win-win situation as far as education is concerned, as far as trade is concerned, as far as investment is concerned, and as far as science and technology issues are concerned. So without extending it further, I'm extremely thankful to Prashant for lining up this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chari. You are wonderful. And I remember when 2 years back we had first interaction. At that time, we were not actually good, and a number of, two ministers was even struggling how to do online. And since 2 years, a lot have changed. And with your vision and your association with the agency which you are leading, definitely we are looking forward to work together. Mr. Jain, your observations?
Yes, I'd like to make one or 2 points. Large number of sectors have been discussed today for cooperation in industry, in, investment into India and out of India, and education and social housing, real estate, and all that. I would say, we could convert all this to a very focused thing. If you would like to have working groups sector-wise, which Prashant you can handle, and the members should be related to that sector only, preferably. You can have, of course, finance people, law people attached to that, legal people, but the advantage would be, then that particular sector should also be knowing the rules of the game both in India and in Ireland, because laws will be different for every sector. Then and the opportunities in that sector can be part of that working group. So that will be much more focused, because otherwise it loses focus if you have a very large group interacting. So you can have members from industry you have a large number of real estate players in India who are just waiting to go somewhere to build houses. So why not, they should be, you could start with that. And then other thing is education. These are two areas where you can immediately jump on the bandwagon, and create these working groups. An ambassador will be a real good focal point for all this. I'm really grateful to you. This is the first. I've been to Ireland several times, but you have really put everything on the mat. And of course, Shadri साहब, आपने इतना कवर किया है कि मेरे को कभी सोचा नहीं था कि इतना नॉलेज एक ही टाइम में 10 मिनट में आप और एम्बेसडर साहब बोल सकेंगे, where all the sectors are involved and you could put everything very clearly. That is something fantastic. And we should not lose this opportunity to go forward. And just think over it, working groups. This concept has been there for long in Indian ministries, working groups. Totally focused. And start with a few sectors. Otherwise, you lose focus. ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा आप 5 sectors cover. Don't try to cover more than 4-5 sectors at a time. I would say, as you said, education, real estate, maybe non-conventional energy, or any other requirement, whichever you feel. And FDI, foreign direct investment, both sides, investment, startups. Startups, why I'm saying is, my own son-in-law is having a startup, in education, by the way. He funds loans as an NBFC for people going abroad. But how much it is, he almost nearly didn't survive in the COVID. His startup went bankrupt. So I was looking at the figures which were Shishadri sir was giving, I think, or was it Ambassador, where 1% is the survival rate in India, whereas the survival rate in Ireland is 17%. It's something fantastic. So India का इतना बुरा हाल है startups में. So bad condition of startup. What is the reason? You can even share experiences in that, startups. Because India requires you have to so many educated youngsters who don't know what to do, but it's best that they become self-employed through startups. So these 5 or 6 sectors you can start in consultation with Mr. Damian and Mr. Duncan, and of course others experts, and with consultation with the Irish government. Please identify these sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jain. And the one reason I can mention is the business plan, because here in Ireland, none of actually business go out of the wish that I want to do it, but where is the plan? So if that India could actually look into in details, I think that will be great help. And
business
then
plan is international or domestic business plan? Is it international?
No. Particular startup should have a business plan.
Oh, that's focusing.
Yes. And I want to mention one thing about Mr. Jain. We have an association working with him almost 10 years. And he wanted to bring Indian minister over here. And at that time, number of challenges actually, particularly political clearance and all. And the fruit of that interaction is now the Kerry Group and Glanbia. They are successfully doing business in India. And we are really thankful that you facilitated that contact and that actually flourishing now. Duncan and Lawrence, I think Lawrence, you can go first. And I'm a bit sorry that actually we are running a bit out of time, but I think we will conclude it within 10 minutes. Lawrence, you first.
Thanks, Prashant. I actually like this idea of concluding and suggesting actions. I mean, a lot of events that I went to, I mean, talk a lot of good points and so on, but after the conference finished. But I really like this idea. So let me give some humble observation, maybe a suggestion as well. Now, I actually know Prashant for, I think, more than 10 years. We've been working together in different occasions before. And I personally have many Indian friends in Ireland. I think Ireland has a very vibrant Indian community, and they're involving in all sorts of businesses. And there are many good researchers in Ireland as well, doing a lot of very cutting-edge research in Irish universities there. So, I mean, my thought would be, yes, it's good to talk about bilateral business relationship and so on. But I think, can we look at from the Indian communities in Ireland, is there opportunity for the existing businesses, perhaps to organize some sort of opportunity for them to work together with the researchers? Now, the researchers have a lot of technologies, okay, and the businessmen, they have a lot of experience. Now, is there opportunity for them to try to maybe do some brainstorming and just try to leverage the skill set from each other and see whether they can do something in Ireland? Perhaps maybe start up some new startup companies, or how to use the technology from the researchers to advance the business the Indian community has in Ireland. So I think this is an area certainly Enterprise Ireland would be very interested to look at, and how we support. And I personally would, I mean, if there's anything that I can do, I would really help to maybe organize something, or maybe to talk to the group there. But this is something I think we can start small and start now, and perhaps, who knows, it can grow to something bigger in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Lawrence. And one thing about the Lawrence, I think about 20 years back, before 2005, there was a huge issue about the spouses of the Indians, and a number of actually countries was not allowed to work. And at that time, Lawrence was actually great help to assist in this. And that brought a change, and that brought a change in terms of that now we have an integration minister, and that was the outcome of that process. So thank you, Lawrence, and thank you again for your help. And then you, through Enterprise Ireland, you are going to contribute the same spirit. And we remember even actually we celebrated St. Patrick's Day and Holi in 2006, I believe. And you brought a number of musicians from your community and from the university. So thank you
Well,
so
it's
much.
a long time. Thank you very much. But I would consider my Indian friends and all the Indian communities would be my friends in here. So anything I can do for you, please just let me know.
Thank you so much. John, your last thoughts, and then Duncan and Damien.
Okay, thanks, Prashant. Briefly, I found the presentation of all speakers very informative, and just a couple of takeaways. First of all, in relation to the presentation, Ambassador Mishra, your presentation, it was I made a few notes of your presentation, and you've set yourself very ambitious goals. So I look forward to hopefully that you can achieve some of those goals, because but it's great that you've such ambition, and I hope, and maybe I said we can assist in some way to achieving those goals, and I wish you luck in your endeavors. The other takeaway I took from the conference is in relation to the renewable energy sector, because I have some experience recently involved on the solar side of things, and we're presently trying to close out a 50 megawatt deal up in Tuam, County Galway. So I'm familiar with the opportunities, solar opportunities in Ireland, and also a number of years ago I had a client and we were looking at hydrogen. So I think there are significant opportunities in the renewable space in Ireland, and I was interested to hear Mr. Jan and his vision, and I certainly think India could bring a lot of expertise to Ireland, and there's, as Duncan will attest to, there's a lot of opportunities on the renewable energy side of things here. So I certainly think that some collaboration between Ireland and India would be mutually beneficial there. So they're my two takeaways. And finally, as I said, Mr. Chaudhry said that, this conference, I suppose we're targeting investors, and Enterprise Ireland and Mr. Lee do a huge amount of very important work on that. And again, they would be of great assistance to Indian investors coming into Ireland, and hopefully we might work with them in time. So that's my few points in relation to the this morning's conference, Prashant. So again, thank you very much for having me on.
Thank you, John. Mr. Duncan, briefly, and then Damien, please.
Well, thank you. And I must say, I was very impressed with all of the talks here today, and I've learned a lot. And I would love to see, as a lot of us are saying, how we can collaborate better together and move forward. And some of those ideas that are coming out of this sum up, are very interesting. My main kind of concern would be that, when we look at our environment again and look at what we have to do to mitigate climate change, the United Nations have committed that, that if we are to hold to a 1.5 degree rise in global mean surface temperature, when we're now at 1.2 degrees, we've only got 0.3 more to reach, and then we're into what is called dangerous climate change, where things go dramatically out of control. And when we get to 2 degrees, beyond that, I'm sorry, it's over for the planet. So we need to kind of say, how do we kind of, in all of our discussions here, focus on the fact that by 2030, globally, the United Nations says we have to reduce our emissions by 50%. Now, that means that's a big challenge, but it's also a massive opportunity to get off fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas in 8 years by 50%, if we are to hold to a 1.5 degree. And we already know at 1.2 degree, the damage that climate change is doing. And
Duncan, your message is quite clear. So if you please briefly, summarize.
Okay. I just kind of feel that if we can look at all of the things we're trying to do together collaboratively in trade, in investments, in new businesses, all of the startups, innovation, everything, if we could please try and focus on that longer term situation to see, are we promoting the right things? Or is a lot of what we're going to do, if we do kind of increase our trade and our collaboration and our businesses together, it's so important that we do it the right way, that it will be sustainable and ecologically beneficial rather than damaging to the planet. So my message is that, I don't at the moment see that cohesion in our group. I don't see the focus being on a sustainable way forward so far. So I would love to see a much greater focus on that and an examination of everything we propose in the light of, does it match up? Is it going to damage more biodiversity? Is it going to create more pollution? Is it going to create more greenhouse gas emissions? Are we going to lock ourselves into a worse situation? And to assess everything so that we seize the opportunities in education and in innovation and in startups and investments that are going to be compatible with reducing our emissions by 50% by 2030. That would be.
Thank you, Duncan. Now, Damien, very briefly, please.
Very briefly. I like Pankaj Jan's notion about some working groups. So I was thinking there's 4 working groups that it would, if we were to set these up quickly, one on education, in particular the environmental education element, one on renewables, one on health, and one on IT related startups, because you have incredible technical ability in India, and we, with the 4 or 5 main global communications companies headquartered here in Ireland, I think it would be a marriage made in heaven, or a relationship made in heaven anyway. So thank you, and a special thanks to Prashant. You have no idea the amount of work he does on behalf of India here and the thoughtfulness of it.
Thank you, Damien. Actually, we need to conclude it. And
Yes.
First, I want to actually convey our thanks to Minister Sean Fleming and his staff, because we troubled him late night and there's something actually happened in their initial plans. So really, his staff actually at the late night was come to help us in many ways. So, and at the eve of St. Patrick's Day, civil servants are working. That is amazing. I really, appreciate Mr. Fleming and his team for his support. And not the last, Dr. Seshadri Chari, his vision, and whenever I listen him, actually, I found him actually, that the wisdom originates like a fountain. And we really, admire that. And we want actually him, long time, healthy and active like these days. And we have a lot of to do together. And our ambassador, Mishra, he is a real asset. And even I mentioned that the way the Indian foreign policy and foreign relations these days changing, and Mr. Mishra is one of the shining example for that. And I was mentioning to Mr. Jain the kind of actually trouble, even we had to have meetings between the minister and the companies, and the political clearance for that about actually 20 and 15 years back, that was actually, not worth even actually, that kind of foreign policy. And Mr. Jain is so clever to actually find out the way around how to actually deal with that. So I really appreciate and really thankful for your support, Mr. Jain. And Duncan, he's always great support, and particularly he's a a real voice in Irish media, and Irish society. So we are really thankful, Duncan, for your continued support and the issues you are passionate with. And I believe in the real future, you will not find India is lagging behind, and they will definitely make you proud that we are working towards achieving your goals and vision. And John Carroll, he's a wonderful partner and he always supports whatever you wants to do between India and Ireland. And I'm looking forward that in near future, John is going to be establishing number of offices in India, and he has some ambitious plan. And same with the Lawrence, and Lawrence is long-time friend, and he always actually support Indian community. And you all know Damien. He is true ambassador for India in Ireland. And he always actually, keeps Indian flag high. So thank you very much, Damien. And with these kind words, I'm really grateful for all of you for participating in today's discussion. And we are looking forward to how we could actually cooperate and work in future. But progress is happening. And in next 5 to 10 years, I think will be different with the kind of leadership we receive from our ambassador. Mishra, thank you.
Thank you. And one big thanks
Thank
to
you, Prashant.
Thank you. So with these words, we are going to end our bread